Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wrestling Academy, a podcast all about wrestling history with no linear timeline or trackable syllabus. So if you're a lifelong fan or you're brand new, this is the podcast for you. I am your headmaster. My name is Michael Classic.
And I am your Homecoming King Samee Junio. And we are on a journey of growth right now as a small podcast. So if you go over to our YouTube at Wrestling Academy Pod and follow us there, once we're at 1,000 subscribers, I will put Michael through a table.
What?
Yes.
It's so funny. I'm acting like I didn't come up with it. Wait, you'll do what?
Excuse me, what?
So if you could get to YouTube and hit subscribe, we would really appreciate it. And as our gift to you, Samee will absolutely put me through a real table. We're really going to do this, but we need your help to do it.
We do.
Something else we need your help with, though, is we are still on the hunt for Ween Kid, the mysterious figure who's in the background of every single shot of Royal Rumble 2008. We've started a nationwide search trying to find out #who is Ween Kid, and we're not going to stop till we find them. So if you have any ideas on what we could be doing, or if you have any tips or clues, please hit us up on any of our socials. You can visit our website, wrestlingacademy.university, where you could give us a tip, leave us a clue, or you could hit up our anonymous Ween Kid tip line and give us a clue there. So the number is 708-669-4512. Again, that number is 708-669-4512. But Samee, all that stuff, that's in the future. Today, I think we're going to do something really special because we have our very first guest on the Wrestling Academy podcast, and I'm super excited.
I am so excited as well. So our special guest is a special and important friend of mine. He's an LA-based stand-up producer, actor, and writer. He right now produces and hosts a show called No Laughing at the Hollywood Improv in Los Angeles. And we, together, alongside our friend Ryan Pig, achieved a massive dream together and got our show, Historical Roasts, on Netflix. But most importantly, for this podcast,
Eddie is a professional wrestling referee. We've got a real life referee on the podcast, and we're going to interview him about what it's like to do that. And I don't know, I just feel like over the course of filming these or recording these podcasts, we've just had a couple of specific questions we really wanted to ask referees, and now we 100% get a chance to.
You've seen him in the ring for Women of Wrestling, or WOW, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, CWFH. He was a co-host on the Store Horseman podcast and produced the STORECADE wrestling event in the Comedy Store in 2019. He's our friend and yours. It's Eddie Furth. Eddie Furth, thank you for joining us and being our first guest in the hallowed halls of Wrestling Academy. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. I really appreciate you having me on.
For the people who are just tuning in, the reason we're having you on the show today is because you are a referee for professional wrestling, and we wanted to get into just what's that like. Because I mean, all we do on this podcast generally is jump into wrestling history and we break down storylines and stuff. So everything that's going on, maybe behind the scenes, is sort of our best guess. But you actually know, so we're really excited to get some goddamn answers for a change.
What has been your favorite thing to go back and watch right now? Like, what's been the storyline or the match or the moment or the wrestler? Like, diving into the history of it, what's been your favorite thing so far?
We just recently did an episode about the history of exploding barbed wire death matches, because it's one of those things. As a young wrestling fan, I just had only ever heard about them, and so I was just like, who does these? Is there anything more than just we've seen the clips or the TikToks of you just see the explosion? And it's like, I had never seen a full match. I had never thought about the psychology or the history of how you took a bunch of different ingredients and put them all together. So just diving into that and then watching, I think me and Samee watched 5 exploding barbed wire death matches. We were real
in like a week.
We were real punchy and squeamish after that one.
You saw 2 and you're like, I'm not quite sure if I understand.
Yeah, we gotta do at least 4 more.
We gotta dig in deeper. There's gotta be something else here.
At 3, you were like, wait a minute, let me get this straight.
I will be I will be totally honest with you. At 4, I did have some kind of breakthrough where I was like, what is art? What is humanity? What are we honestly even doing? And so I did have a moment where I was like, oh, I kind of pushed through and I experienced ego death. And then I was just thinking about it as performance art. So I
Oh
honestly
my
think
God.
binging crazy matches, I would recommend it.
Are you
It's
saying
really
to me
eye-opening.
that barbed wire death matches are the student film of pro wrestling, where it's super artsy
Ooh.
and you gotta like, there's not as much plot as you'd want, but they tried really hard and the blood and guts looked real enough, and you're like, I guess if they were having fun.
Honestly, it feels a lot more like a David Lynch movie where you're just like, they
Oh,
are operating on a deeper level and an intuitive level that I don't understand, but I
oh.
can see that they do. That's how I felt watching exploding barbed wire death matches.
The best explanation I had ever heard of those matches, I think it was the Nick Gage episode of Dark Side of the Ring.
Mm.
He's like an indie death match guy, and like you can, I don't know, I saw that and I saw like the culture behind it and the idea of like there's an etiquette and a way, like it's a whole subculture just like any other mainstream music to indie rock that's done out in a field. When he was like, we all met in a field, I was like, oh, you guys are doing something else entirely. This is just meeting out in the middle of a field. Got it. Well, if I
it's like,
brought a
you guys are
microphone there, I
creating
know
this
who'd
because
show
you
up.
need to. That's what it
Yeah,
feels like.
yeah.
And so I guess that gets to my first question for you is just, it seems like me, you're sort of a lifelong wrestling fan. So was it like, do you remember a match or a storyline or something that like hooked you for life or something like that?
I think I was hooked for life the first time I saw it. I've been watching since I was 5 years old. And the big thing that was going on was WrestleMania 5, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man.
Great.
Now, I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, which is where their headquarters was. And one of the kids that my brother went to Cub Scouts with, this kid's uncle provided Jake the Snake Roberts with all of his snakes. So Jake's snakes came to our Cub Scout meetings. We met the Cobra and the Python. And so my brother's friend had this big viewing party for WrestleMania 5. And I couldn't go. I was too young. They were like, Eddie, you can't hang out with the big kids all the time. So I went in at the end of it. I remember that we went to go pick him up. The show is over and I walk in and Hogan is walking around and he's holding the belt over his head and he won. And I was like, I think I like this. And I've never stopped watching. The biggest match for me was the year later when Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior wrestled each other. 6 years old, because I'm as old as WrestleMania. We were eating Girl Scout cookies while I'm watching Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. And I cried when Hulk Hogan lost, like real tears. I was so sad that Ultimate Warrior beat him. And I never stopped from 5 years old to WrestleMania 40. Never stopped watching it. It was instantaneous.
Do you have a favorite wrestler of all time? And is that different than like a wrestler that you're really into right now?
Hulk Hogan is what I loved growing up, right? So if I'm 5 years old and I see him up through WrestleMania 9, it was nothing but Hogan. Some of the most formative years. When I got to be a teenager, I was a Shawn Michaels guy all the way. From Heartbreak Kid, the minute he threw Marty Jannetty through the window, I hated him, but like I kind of liked him. And I liked that sort of, that was as rebellious as I think I wanted to get as a kid. But then all of a sudden he's having these insane matches in the ring. I loved Bret, but like Shawn was my guy. It was a Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect match that I really loved. But it's Shawn. Look, the Attitude Era. I am high on John Cena. The biggest knock on John Cena's career is he didn't have an opponent that was as big as he was up until he wrestles The Rock at WrestleMania 28 and 29. But he's dominant and beautiful in a way of like, this is what this ultimate good guy can look like. If you say favorite, though, I'm right here, right now, which is that it's progressing the same. Like Hulk Hogan and Roman Reigns are not doing the same thing. They're totally different products. And that current version of it, like I am a Roman Reigns guy through and through. Like my love for Roman is deep because I talked about this after WrestleMania this year. I cried when Roman lost the belt. Like I went back and watched it the next day and I cried at his entrance. I cried when he lost. I have no dislike for Cody whatsoever. I love Cody, but I love Roman because Roman brought me back to wrestling. Roman made me care about wrestling now the way I felt when I was a kid. And I hadn't felt that in a very long time. And COVID, I walked away from wrestling. There's a lifelong wrestling fan. I don't know if you have this, Michael. there's moments where I come and go from wrestling as a lifelong fan. You kind of put it down for a little while, and I put it down during COVID, and Roman made me feel in a way that I hadn't felt in a long time.
I was going to ask you, you mean the tribal chief storyline? Because I was going to ask, like, were you a fan of Roman even post Shield when everybody was booing him and it was just
big
like
dog.
Kind of a real tough go for Roman? Were you a fan then, or are you talking specifically post COVID when he became the tribal chief?
Bloodline.
Okay,
Look, I didn't hate Roman the way other people hated him. I liked him and was rooting for him, but knew he was in this spot of like, right, when he's the big dog and Cena comes back, Cena handed him his ass on the mic, and like he was still learning and growing. But this version, when he comes back and he's the tribal chief and he enters a quiet arena with screens around him and then takes the title, and just that whole run, this dominance, what it means to be a 4-year champion now, it made me feel for performance and wrestling in a way I honestly don't think I'd felt since I was a kid. Not that would move me to tears when I watched. I'm telling you, when he walks in the arena and he is ripped, and you see a guy who is like, no, I came to show you I'm the best. Not just in the ring, but in what we do. Oh, it's bloodline, tribal chief Roman Reigns. He is my favorite wrestler because that is something on a level that I didn't even think was something to consider. Even like Cena had a run. No. This was a run, right? The next night, what did they say? They said, "Thank you, Roman." And they've been saying, "We want Roman" ever since. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It made me feel. Oh,
that's actually,
Roman.
And this is interesting because I want to get Samee involved in this, because you saying how much you love John Cena, I love hearing that, because I also think we have done a John Cena episode, and I feel like I sort of inadvertently poisoned the well of John Cena for Samee, and I have not
recovered.
They have not been able to see the bright spots of John Cena. So I was hoping maybe you two could chat just briefly, and maybe you could help Samee see the light.
Samee, where do you stand on Cena? What's your approach on? So where are your thoughts on feelings on him?
So after doing all of the research that we did for the John Cena episode, I just feel like in wrestling specifically, or maybe just outside of wrestling too, my top guy needs to have flaws. And I feel like John Cena's presentation is very flawless. Like, I'm the best. And and just like undisputed the best. And there's no like spots in his armor. He has no soft underbelly. It's just, I'm the best. And it gets boring. And that's why I don't really like Superman either. And I know you like Superman a lot, Eddie. And maybe we could take this off, because we could probably talk about this for hours. But that's where I'm at with John Cena, is that he is the ultimate good guy, but I think he's really boring.
Yeah, look, I hear you, and I fully understand. I validate that belief, because that was essentially a flaw with Hogan as well. While I'm not going to say I believe this now, right? This is something I'm formulating in this moment with you more as the philosophical academy discussion of storytelling in pro wrestling. Could you not say that John Cena's flaw was never giving up? That led him into battle against people that he should not have been coming up against, and that overzealous altruism is its flaw. That all of a sudden this guy who won't, almost like, dude, calm down, but he never gave up. Like, you fought giants and monsters, you tore your pec and came back. Is that in some essence not the flaw? And one of the reasons I love Cena, because I watched my hero fall what I felt was too soon, but Cena I never had to see fall. And that prolonged goodness, especially in the face of not just adversity, but people telling him he sucked. It was like, all right, I suck. Come get me. If I suck, why am I on your television this week? If I suck, why are you talking about me?
That's fair. Yeah. Again, if we say more, we will extend this podcast.
Yeah,
to 3
this is
hours.
making me be like, okay, we are going to do a John Cena part 2. And I'm hearing we're going to do an Eddie part 2 episode too, because we need you back to help us rebuild this John Cena for Samee.
All right, we'll do a Cena episode.
I can't wait. Okay, so getting back to you and wrestling, so it's like, obviously hearing you talk, I can hear the like your passion, your love for it, and so I guess what made you want to take the jump from being like just a fan to being like an active participant in the world of wrestling?
If I'm honest, I've only wanted to be three things in my entire life. And the first thing I wanted to be was a pro wrestler. And I didn't chase it hard enough. I wasn't focused. I never really went down the path of exploring what it would take to be a pro wrestler. Secondarily, I would have always wanted to be Bobby the Brain Heenan. Being Bobby the Brain Heenan, a manager, a heel manager coming to the ring with somebody, that was something that I looked at and was like, I absolutely would do something like that. But being a kid, I wanted to be WWE champion, all right? When it came to getting involved, it actually didn't happen until I moved out to Los Angeles. And I wound up in like a storytelling and improv class with a wrestler from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And that's the beautiful thing about this town. Like in Hollywood, there's literally everybody in the entertainment business at all times. That was actually the first time I had a chance to consider getting involved in that way, because even growing up in Stanford, if you want to get into pro wrestling, you move to wherever there's a school or an indie scene. It was in the 90s, early 2000s. I can make the excuse. It was inaccessible, but I didn't go search it out. So it wasn't until I got out here and I'm in class with somebody who was actually a teacher, one of the trainers at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood's Training Academy. I was just like, yo, can I come watch a training session? I would just love to be near the ring and watch you guys work and start to see what it's like to go to wrestling school. At that time, Samee, we're working at Meltdown, and when they had shows on the weekend, I just thought to myself, like, I'll come watch the shows. And then watching the shows led to, well, I'm a performer and entertainer, producer and writer. Like, I just started going backstage with them because I would drive up with the wrestlers. So then it was like, then you'll hang out backstage. And that's how I started to get involved backstage with learning how Championship Wrestling from Hollywood worked, with the goal in mind that I would get an on-camera role. I wanted to be a manager or I wanted to be a commentator because of what Bobby the Brain Heenan did. That's how I came to be around Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which set up being on camera.
So it sounds like you've done a bunch of different roles. Like, what kind of behind the scenes or on camera roles have you done in the world of professional wrestling?
So I started learning at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood how to essentially produce and write a TV show. Because look, it's a television show. We're on TV weekly. You need to write the segments and get to commercial break and plan out long-term and short-term storytelling and what's the champion doing and why? Who's coming for the champion or who's the champion running from? What storylines? Who's got a grudge match and how are you building? Like the very essence of storytelling is in it. The friend of mine who was training there that I met through the improv classes taught me the structure of a wrestling match. And when you look at the structure of a wrestling match, it lines up with like the 7 parts of storytelling. So when you're working backstage, you're learning both in the match, what are they doing? And then what are they doing week to week, month to month, year to year? That's where I was starting to get my education at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, knowing, like anything else, I was like, I'll find some way to fit into this if I just learn it and I'm around it.
So then how did we go from that to refereeing? Is that just one of those things like you're doing it and they need a referee, or?
No, it's look, you've been in showbiz long enough. You know exactly how it was. Somebody didn't show up. They were looking around. They needed an extra referee. They said, Eddie, can you referee? And I said, if you tell me how, I can.
Beautiful.
Let me know what I need to know and I'll go out and do it. Knowing I could at least, look, I went to acting school in New York City. I've been on stage as a comedian. My theory is, if you give me some role to perform and tell me what the real rules are and what the fake rules are, tell me what I need to know to get these people through safely and how to perform a referee. What does a referee do as a performance, right? There's parts of that as a referee where you're signaling things or you're communicating things, or it's for this show. You want this big grandiose, get out of the ring. And they talked me through. They had some great referees, guys who worked at Ring of Honor, who were on their production team, referees for Ring of Honor, and great referees who went on to write for NXT. I mean, our lineage through Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is everyone from Adam Pearce, GM on Raw, to LA Knight, who's going to win a world championship this year. We have writers and producers. Johnny LaQuasto started there and went to NXT. So like, it's this free flow back and forth. And when they needed a referee, they said, can you do it? And I said, if you teach me, just tell me what I need to know. They gave me a referee's shirt. Someone went out to the store and bought one. They had an extra pair of black pants and some black shoes. And I went and refereed. I think my first match was a tag match.
Something I've always been very curious about is, what would you say, to having now done it and been a referee, like what is the goal of the referee in the like performance of a match? Like, are you like what ingredient are you adding by being the referee? How does the referee factor into that show, that part of the show?
You know how Hitchcock said suspense is a shot of people playing cards at the table, and then a shot of the bomb under the table ticking down, and then a shot of the people at the table, and then a shot of the bomb. The referee is the bomb. The referee is the tension release, because the finish to the match, whoever wins or loses, however this ends, is coming through the referee. So we're that trigger, so to speak. The action that we're taking is who is going to win this match. And it's not our decision. We're just the conduit through which you understand. There's nothing bigger than that 1, 2, 3 when the new champion is crowned. We are that simple. The rest of it is just to support the concept that there is structure and rules to this, because if you're going to go with true heel and babyface terms, and you're going to work a structure where there's a good guy and a bad guy, in theory, the bad guy is going to break those rules. So at some point, if this heel is going to break the rules, I'm there to show that this person is not a good person, because they're not going to have a fair fight. It's supposed to be a fair athletic contest. They're not going to make it that way. I am just there to do that and then support the rest of that story through those very simple aspects.
That's like the performance side, but then like nuts and bolts inside of the ring while the match is going on. Are you like communicating stuff from the back, or are you just sort of like helping like what's sort of the behind the scenes role of the referee? Is it literally just to keep track of the rules and the time like the on-screen persona is, or is the performance different than what you're actually doing?
It will vary from referee to referee. The majority of it is, so for most of the companies I work for, I have an earpiece in my ear and it's connected to the back. And the majority of what I'm getting through that earpiece are time cues. Most of what I've done is live to tape, being edited in post, but live to tape meaning we're doing it live, but what you see is essentially what's going to go onto television, but we're not going straight live. So I'm getting 3 minutes to commercial break, 2 minutes to commercial break, count them down, 30 seconds to commercial, and we're at commercial. And I'm able to take those and tell the wrestlers in the ring, you've got 3 minutes to break, or you've got 4 minutes left in your match, 2 minutes left in your match. Because like a stand-up comedy set, they're supposed to know how many minutes of material they have left before that match is over. If I tell you we're 2 minutes to the finish, you would know exactly how many moves and where in the story you're going to be at. I've communicated other little things from the back. I know some referees who are more active in helping to pace out the match, helping to speed up and slow down. I've communicated wrestler to wrestler as well. There are moments that someone's selling on one side of the ring and they want you to communicate something to the other side, tag team to tag team, anything like that. But my favorite part is anytime I'm with my friends in the ring and they're killing it and I just walk by them, I lower my head and I go, man, you guys got him. You got him. And I just walk past them. You got him. You got him. You got the audience. Go. You got it.
Okay, that makes me feel good because that is 100% what I couldn't help but nerd out if I was ever in the ring. So it is good to be like, oh, even as the ref, you're like, hey, you guys are killing it. You guys are doing so great.
Raven once asked me, we were doing a podcast with Raven at the Comedy Store, and he asked, because he found out I was a ref and he didn't really get it. He was like, what do you enjoy about being, it was almost like, what do you enjoy about being a referee? Like he never understood. And I told him the honest answer, like, I'm not putting on this show, but I'm standing in the ring next to two of my friends who are putting on a show, captivating an audience, and I get to stand right next to them and help support that. You know what it's like to stand literally on stage next to your friends who are crushing it, going, oh my God, like, I'm so excited that you have them. Like, you're right next to the show that they're putting on and part of that. It's so much fun. I love everyone I've worked with, and they've put on incredible shows, and I've been in the ring in some absolutely electrifying matches where you can just feel that the crowd is enthralled with what's going on.
Are you a part of the planning of the match, or are you aware of all of the spots, or do you get surprised all of the time?
I have worked with people to help put matches together, though I very rarely do. I have not graduated to a stage or a place where I'm an essential part of that, but I have helped. I have worked with wrestlers who will walk me through what they're walking through. So anything that they're discussing beat by beat in the story, I've been involved in those. I've also been involved. And in fact, if you ask me what my preferred way to work is, I go up to, this is exactly how I go up to a wrestler. Anytime we're having a match, I'll go up to the wrestlers and I'll say, hey, I'm with you for match 4 tonight. What's the finish? And is there anything you want me to know? If there's anything in the match that's abnormal, or they really want me to catch or not catch, or there's somebody's coming in, something's happening, just, is there anything specific that you're working on that you need me to know to help you through? Because I'm a character in your story. But really, if you told me what's my ideal, tell me what the finish is, and then just let me go watch. Because being present and reacting in real time is incredibly valuable in that situation. And it's fun for me. Then I don't know what's going on, except I got to watch for the high knee off the ropes. 1, 2, 3. Then I know. And yes, I've been surprised. I've had a finish changed on me in the middle of a match.
Do they communicate that to you, and then you're like, oh, I guess it's this now? Or do you have to just sort of vibe it out and know?
One of my favorite wrestlers to referee because of how good he is in the ring, how smooth he is, and how well he plays the crowd is Scorpio Sky in AEW. I worked a lot with Scorpio Sky in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and he had a match with Willie Mack, who's also awesome to work with. They told me what the finish was. We get out in the ring, and they're going. And Sky hits what I know is his secondary finishing move. He uses a TKO. He said TKO for the finish. But he hits this knee that he uses. And Willie goes down and he's selling. And I hit 1 and I'm looking at Willie and he's not watching anything. And I hit 2 and I'm like, okay, this looks like it was supposed to be the finish, but they did not tell me this was the finish. And I go to hit 3 and I'm watching the whole time for him to kick out. And I swear you can see it in the video. I've watched it back. I hit 3 and I look at them for a split second to be like, oh my God, did I mess this up? And no, okay, I call for the bell. That moment of just like, it looked like the finish. And as a referee, you're told, don't pull the 3 until you see the shoulder up, because if you pull it and they don't kick out, everybody looks bad. It's better for me to mess up and count when I'm not supposed to than miss it. Right?
Okay.
Than to pull it, but they didn't move out of the way. So yeah, they didn't tell me. Afterwards, Sky was just like, oh, we changed the finish. Sorry. And I was like, yeah, you think?
Yeah, you're just like, oh, whoo. Because I guess that's something that I'm sure probably everybody's it does sound like it like acting or like any sort of live theater where there's all kinds of different personalities, where somebody's probably a stone cold killer on TV, but then backstage they're like totally cool. But I bet that there are probably some people that if you were to mess something up slightly, you'd hear about it. Like, are there those kinds of personalities in wrestling too? Is it like any sort of performing art?
Yeah, it's me. If you mess something up, I'm the one to come back and be like, really? That's what you said you were going to do? Nah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's every one of them. Every one of them is, we're pure entertainers. We're pure. It's built on pure carny. And there's still wild, outsized personalities and very relaxed, chill people. It's all kinds of, and they're all very interesting and unique. I've always loved. I've read almost every wrestler autobiography because everybody comes to wrestling through very different paths. Because there's no one way. It's not like being a teacher where you know what the process to be a teacher is. To get into pro wrestling, there's not one way. Everyone has their own unique way they get in. So they're all incredibly interesting and unique. So yeah, you get ones who are much more sticklers for the exacting perfection and others who are a little looser. And
so me and Samee, we just did an episode on Kevin Steen versus El Generico. And they have a huge match, a fight without honor and Ring of Honor. It's an anything goes. And we get to like the end of the match. It's really cooking. And like a ref goes down, gets knocked out. And like a new ref comes in, counts 1, 2, Generico kicks out. Kevin Steen gets so mad, he does a package pile driver to the referee. And so I guess I'm just wondering, like, where do you get clued in on that? You know, like, where does that come into the play of somebody being like, oh, hey, it's like, I'm sure there's somebody like, you might get bumped and you might go down. But if you're going to take like a serious move like that, how how does that even come about? Like, because I guess for me, if I was like, are referees trained as wrestlers? Like, I don't know. Just when I saw it, it just felt so insane that I was just like, how did this happen?
Most referees I know, including myself, have gone to some wrestling school. So that wrestling school that I started to go and watch Ty Matthews training, I ended up going to school for a while. I never took like a full flat back bump, but we did a lot of stuff in there. And that's part to get the feel and be in there and learn, to be comfortable with physicality. You would never, like any other performance, you would never be physical with someone you didn't discuss it through, because it is incredibly unsafe. So no referee is getting hit without prior knowledge. And if they are, something majorly went wrong. And for any story where there's a ref bump, like in a wrestling match, since it's such a crucial plot point, that's clearly what's going to be happening. So we're going through so whoever took that package pile driver knew they were taking it. They walked through. If they've never taken one, they might have thrown a mat down and walked through it and done it onto a mat so that you could feel it but feel comfortable. I've taken bumps in the ring. I've gotten punched in the face in the ring. I've gotten hit a couple times as a referee.
What was your biggest bump to date?
My biggest bump to date was probably one that I took at the Comedy Store.
Oh.
So as part of the Store Horseman, the podcast that I was on at the Comedy Store with Tony Hinchcliffe and Johnny Scortis and Chris Burns and Matt Edgar and Josh Martin, we put on a wrestling show in the main room at the Comedy Store. And the big end of the match was Chris Burns and I had started a fight on the podcast, and we had a feud. So we picked two tag teams. One was going to represent him and one was going to represent me. And it was a hair versus beard match. So if my tag team won, Chris would have to shave his head. And if his tag team won, I would have to shave my beard. But I'm the evil genius, so I outsmarted them. I was the referee for the match, assuming I would screw Chris out of it. So at the very end of the match, when my team was about to win and I was about to count 3, Chris pulled me out of the ring, took a Ridge wallet, those titanium wallets that were sponsoring the show,
Oh, God.
hit me in the head, knocking me out cold, slid me back in the ring, and he took my hand and counted 3 for his team so that he won. And then they shaved my beard in the middle of the ring, in the middle of the main room at the Comedy Store.
Wrestling is so cool, dude.
In the main room, the only other person who had done stuff like that was Andy Kaufman. We had David Arquette giving RKOs in the middle of the Comedy Store.
That's out of control. That was a Storecade, right?
StoreCade, yeah. We had talked about a sequel forever. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen at Comedy Mothership one day.
Oh, maybe. Was there like any like training time for that, or did you discuss that before? And then that was pretty much it. You didn't do any rehearsal or walkthrough of you getting slammed in the head with a wallet?
We walked through the moment like you would walk through a rehearsal beat by beat.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really do anything. He didn't pull me out and swing, but we went over. We might have marked the move before, but I can also tell you that I wound up with a bruise on my head. Like,
sure.
Which, as we imagined, we wanted. Like, he didn't hit me hard, but he didn't miss with the wallet either. Like, I definitely had a bruise on my bald head. He shaved my head. He shaved my beard. The realest one that I ever did was early in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I had to slide into the ring, and one of the wrestlers was attacking Pretty Peter Avalon. And he knocked out the champion, Pretty Peter Avalon. And Sasha Derevko then took out a referee, took out another, and I slid in, stood up, and he punched me right in the face and knocked me out too. And Sasha, we went over it. I had never taken a punch full on, but I had stage combat training, and I'd been through some wrestling school classes. But we walked through, and he was very, very kind and informative and instructive on what we would do and how it would go, when to move, how to pull. And you can find it on YouTube somewhere, but it looks awesome. Like I took a good hit and went down and then just stayed there for a while.
Is it hard to just stay down for the rest of whatever's going on?
Only because I'm afraid somebody will accidentally step on me.
Sure.
Like if you got your head down and you're not looking, your fear is somebody's going to, like, I don't have my head up to look and make sure someone doesn't step on me accidentally.
That is just like a very fun kind of acting exercise where you're just like, I have to just be knocked out for as long as the beat requires. And then it is just sort of all you're doing is just like, oh man, it sounds like they're getting close. Sounds like they're getting real close. Yeah.
No, the better one is when it's at the Comedy Store and I have to pretend I'm knocked out while they spent 3 minutes shaving my beard in the ring.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
there's a photo of me just pretending I'm knocked out, but it's like,
You're like,
of course he's not knocked out.
Yeah, really try to get in all the grooves and stuff.
Glass jaw Furth over here.
oh my God.
This is just something that I'm just curious about, right? So it's like, okay, so being a referee, viewing it as part of a performance. So do you think that as like a referee, you have like your referee character, or is that not really the kind of performance that you're doing? Or should referees have characters? What do you think?
I towed that line for a very long time because of how I approach things and who I am and what I wanted to do with it and my career. I think at its best, referees are supposed to be seen as completely neutral and unknown figures outside of look on WoW, they mentioned my name. Like I'm a referee, referee official Eddie Furth, WoW official Eddie Furth. They'll mention me, but especially because if you get distracted, that's all part of the show. But ideally, you're supposed to come off as authoritative, neutral, and at times completely oblivious. Right? That's essentially as far as it goes. And there's room for playing with that. But in terms of the story, you're never really going to get a payoff or a reason for the referee where you're not pulling from the main story. So ultimately, you are there to support that as an ultimate simple supporting character. And the best thing you can do is just be that 1, 2, 3 or calling for the submission. I had to play a bit of a character once where there was a mess up to a finish of a match. Something happened and the ending got messed up. And so WoW had me record an interview later saying, kind of walking through why I called something that was wrong to what the finish was and how it all got messed up that way. And at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood in my early days when I was still a little bit overzealous, I would get the crowd going a bit. But I think at its best, the referee is neutral. It's not pulling any attention from the story. It's not getting in the way. Because you have professionals who are telling the story in a way that the more consistent and stable a presence I am, the more they're going to use that referee properly. They'll use me when they need me, how they need me. I need to be predictable and even as a very basic gestalt because then they can utilize that the way they see fit. I'm a piece to their puzzle. It's just a simple pawn to distract, to move, to use, to know that I'll keep counting, right? What's a referee great for? The heel keeps getting to 4 with a rope break, insisting they're not breaking the rules, but bending them over and over again. Well, all I need to do is do that, and I've served the story.
Since becoming a referee, has that affected how you watch wrestling now? And then the second part of that is kind of, did you ever pay attention to the ref when you were watching, like as a kid?
As a kid, everybody knew Earl Hebner because he was the one guy you'd see all the time. And then by the Montreal Screwjob, you really knew Earl Hebner.
Yeah.
And there were a few referees because, again, like 90s, 80s, 90s wrestling, Gorilla Monsoon's son, Joey Morella. We knew Joey Morella. You knew Mike Chioda. You knew Charles Robinson now. Like, you know who the referees are, and Earl Hebner was the biggest presence in all of our lives when it came to referees, but we knew them all. And they would do little things here and there, but you only paid attention as far as, right, the biggest referee spot was the switch with Andre the Giant, where they had Dave Hebner as the referee and Earl Hebner was the evil referee, and they switched. Wow. And then, of course, the screw job. I didn't watch the referees. Now, it's certainly changed the way I view what's going on. Less about the referees other than trying to, especially if I'm watching WWE, learn by seeing what I know they are and are not doing. I was watching a couple months ago, and it never occurred to me to ask, but I text messaged my friend who works at NXT to ask a very specific question, which was, you know how they show all those replays in the middle of Monday Night Raw? I knew, but I didn't know. And I just checked to see if the referees were giving cues that they're at an instant replay. Because I believe that the wrestlers would be good enough to time that out. But I also know you're on live television. You're making a show. Are they giving those cues? And I learned the answer, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, because of course you're not on live television without communicating accurately what's going on the screen.
Damn.
But now I watch differently in the way that I understand the story that everybody's putting on, in a way that I watch performers on stage. I watched Roman at WrestleMania the way I watch Samee. Who did we see at Meltdown all the time? Like, just name a comedian we knew was there always.
Oh, Kumail.
Kumail. You watch Kumail and you would see how Kumail was working material over time, what mood he was in that night. When was Kumail on fire and when was he struggling to get them? When was he working? So I'm watching those matches going like, oh my God, these wrestlers are on fire right now. Look at what they're doing. Look at their pacing. I watch a lot of their character work and their pacing in such a different way because I know what it is they're trying to do and why. And also through my own experience as a performer. Like watching Roman captivate a stadium is different when you know what it's like to try to get 30 people's attention in the back of a comic book shop. You know?
Did you have a period where, you're now behind the scenes, so the curtain's been pulled back for you? Did that hinder your enjoyment initially, or because it sounds like now you're able to appreciate it at a much deeper level. But I mean, it's like when I went to film school and then you get into the real nitty gritty about like how movies are made and stuff like that. It did give me there was a stretch of time when I was still at school where I was like, oh man, all the magic of movies is kind of killed for me. And then, you evolve past that and you're like, I can't believe they were able to get this result with this amount of material, that kind of thing. So like, was there ever a period where it was sort of diminished for you, or was it always just like, I now love it even more?
I loved it even more immediately. I loved it even more instantaneously because I was coming to it nearly 30 years old, having been in acting school, on stages, in theater productions, in front of cameras, as a performer in all aspects, knowing what it takes to do that kind of stuff, having loved wrestling as deeply as I had, knowing people tangentially through it. The minute I was involved, it was just an extension of my love for what was going on. So the more I could learn and understand, the minute I was in the ring with other wrestlers and performers and really felt it, it only elevated I forget exactly what pay-per-view it was, but I came home after refereeing a Sunday at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and there was some WWE Payback or something, and it was Chris Jericho and Seth Rollins, and it was one of the earlier, might have been the opening match of the pay-per-view, and I started to cry watching it because the match was so good that I was like, I wish I was in there with them because this is a really good match, and to feel them work this pace and this energy, it would just be beautiful to be a part of. So I do understand that sometimes seeing it, you go, oh, and I was immediately just more respect and more love for all aspects of it in every way possible.
And then this one's a little bit less about being a referee and a little bit more just like some behind the scenes thing. But like, how quickly do matches come together? I'm sure it like depends on it, but sometimes I kind of get the sense that like, I mean, you're talking like you come from the world of stand-up, where it's like sometimes you'll be backstage and you'll kind of hear a comedian friend just sort of kind of really casually going through like the 5 bits they might do, and it's like kind of half planned out. Is it sort of the same for wrestling, or are wrestling matches really meticulously planned out, or is it just like, hey, I got like 4 ideas, let's get out there and let's go?
Which one do you think it is?
My gut tells me it's way easier to come in with 4 spots and to this sort of work your way between.
So the answer is kind of all of them. But for the most part, if you want to consider it this way, if you and I had a match on Saturday night, we know what the match is. We're going to figure that match out Saturday when we get to the building. So if we have a match scheduled, but within that, we already know what the story of the match is going into it, right? One of us is a face, one is a heel. We already know what the general program is, whether it's a one-off or it's part of a series. We know what the finish is, so we know what we want to do and where we want to go. We each have specific moves and styles that we use that we're going to lean on anyway, but we're figuring out the beats that night before we go out. So you and I have a match at 8 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, we're going to come together, and we've both thought about some ideas. We've both figured out kind of a few things we want to do together. Then we sit and we go, what about this? We'll start here. One of us is probably going to be leading the way if we don't have what they call an agent or a producer with us who's helping us to lay it out. If it's just us, then we're going to do that. Pardon. Some places I know do a little bit more involvement from a pre-planning stage a little earlier on because it's part of their product. But for the most part, we're figuring out that night before we go out or the day before if there's a larger TV taping ahead of time. But it's simpler than you'd think in terms of, we each have we have styles and moves and ways that we work. So we're going to go out, and if we're going to start hot, it's different than starting slow. If we want to start with some heat or some shine, it's going to be different. Heat being the heels beating up the baby face. If it's shine, baby face is looking good. Well, within that, I can call those spots on the fly, knowing where we're going to end is the suplex off the top rope. So we're going to start hot, come out fighting. Babyface shine, I'm going to cut you off. Heat, babyface comeback, cut off, and then we're going to hit the big suplex off the top, double down. You'd have a couple of those bigger moments planned out. You can string together how you get there, or you can go in the ring and figure it out as you're going along. And it just depends on who's working and where you're at and what it's for.
In a lot of ways, it's like magic, right? Where it's like, oh, once you learn kind of the technical moves behind it, I bet it is really easy to make it all appear spontaneous when it's happening. So in my mind, I've always been like, I bet there are some wrestlers who are like, yeah, I thought about the 4 things I was going to do. And then you get to the building and then you work it out with your partner and you're like, cool, I kind of got these 4 bits. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. That's cool. It's always interesting to be like, oh, it's always a little bit simpler than maybe you might think.
Look, that's why Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat said they wrestled 1,000 times and it was never the same match, but they knew the language of just touching their bodies together and how to react. If one person twisted one way, they knew what that meant inherently because they did it 1,000 times. But there's also that secondary language of why you would do something and how you do it. So if you're meshing with another performer, you can do it very easily, but also you would plan some things out because you know your approach. And if I know mine, then, I want you to take control here. What would you do? I'd armbar, I'd kick, I'd punch, get you in the corner. I'd do this thing where I come out of the turnbuckle and do this. And the great things about those moves and those trends and those bits, right? John Cena was called out for having the 5 moves of doom, but everybody has 5 moves of doom because you're creating familiarity as a character with, as a combat athlete, what moves you find effective in defeating your opponent. It's all logical, but then when you bring them together, Kevin Owens is trying to get that package pile driver off the top rope. Why? Because that's his move. So he's always trying to set you up for that. So then story-wise, where am I going to put it in the story? Depends on where we're going and why, but we both know when we sit down, we're going to that we're getting there. Where would we put it? Well, let's put it earlier because it's not going to mean anything later, or vice versa.
Right, because it all comes down to like experience and stuff like that. And I get that like a way to become a better wrestler is probably to like, there's a bunch of different things you can do. But I guess I was curious, as a referee, like what are you looking to? Because I don't think there are like referee drills you can do. Like, so when you're looking to improve as a referee, like, is it just doing more matches or studying tape, or what are you doing to sort of up your game?
One of the biggest areas that I could improve. First off, I got a note from a friend about a month ago, an unsolicited note. My friend who now works at NXT sent me a text. He saw a screen grab of me being positioned for a pin where I'm supposed to miss the heel having their feet on the ropes. And the note was very simple. If you're going to do this, position yourself over here, because then it won't look like you're a complete imbecile at your job. It'll set up that you missed it a whole lot better. So angles on where I'm positioning to see or not see are always something you're able to look at it. What a theater person will call blocking. I'm just blocking myself different. Where I know as a referee I could always improve is I allow the performance to be too organic, and I could be more aware of the cameras to position myself in the frame of a movie better. And since I'm on TV enough, I'm fortunate that anytime I'm refereeing, I'm probably on television, so there's plenty of footage to watch, and all the cameras are going to be about in the same spot. So I'm trying to be more conscious and aware that we're making a TV show, we're making a movie. There's a framing to it. And if I can position myself more interestingly in the frame, I'm better.
Speaking of blocking, something that takes my breath away when I'm paying attention is the ref sliding in close to the wrestlers for the pin. How long did that take you to nail? Because it looks really complicated.
So you'll love this. It was second nature the first time I did it. because you
Hell yeah.
watch it 1,000 times. It's in your head. You just do it. But I will tell you, this is a world exclusive. When I'm warming up at a show before a match, I warm up by sliding. It's one of the drills that I'll do in the ring. And I'll do it on both sides of my body because I'm naturally right-handed, but sometimes I will need to use my left. And so if I do some stretches or some warm-up, if I'm running the ropes, if I'm doing any of these things, the up and down motion is important. And if I have that time in that space, I slide into position, I stand up and I slide into position. I just do a couple of reps so that the first time I do it isn't the first time of the night. You want to warm up your body, just look, those are great athletes out there. I'm being athletic. I don't think of myself as an athlete, but I'm being athletic.
Sure.
You want to warm up the same. So if I can get in that ring and slide a couple times, I do the drill just as a warm up to get my body ready to go.
And how long did it take you to get used to slamming your forearm on the mat?
I am so happy you said forearm. I still mess up and hit with just my hand sometimes. And I will occasionally hit too hard and mess up my arm for a week. It took 3 to 6 months of tapings before I really felt like I had gotten it down and wasn't going home with a sore arm for a week. It's tough because your first instinct is just to slap, and that doesn't work. And then you start to have to lay the whole arm, and you hit the elbow, you hit this, and there is a perfect sweet spot that makes a great sound and doesn't crush your arm.
Oh,
and I'm still not. If I was a basketball player shooting free throws, I'm like 90% from the field. 95. 10% of the time I make a hit. I'm like, damn, that hurt.
Oh, gosh.
That is also so funny. Like somebody's getting, in a submission getting choked out, and you're just like, just a little too much on that count. Like,
that's smarts. I don't think I can count to 3. This hurts.
No. Guys, can I just say 3 out loud this time?
Yeah, that would be so great.
You get it, right? I've definitely hurt my arm at TV tapings where I still had 3 matches and every false finish hurt. And I wanted to just be like, can I just stand there and say it? You'll all understand. It's the same numbers.
That was another question I have, right? Where it's like, because you're a referee, so you're probably working multiple matches in the night. Is that also how much of a skill to keep like 3 matches in your head? Or is it very easy to be like, to separate and to attack each one you need to? Was like, how long did that take to master?
It's different every night depending on what you need. I went to some tapings because sometimes production is more frenetic and the matches get decided a little closer to showtime, sometimes less. I just go over with the wrestlers as much as all of us need to feel comfortable. And there have been times I've needed people to repeat things a couple extra times, but no performer is upset if I'm coming to them going, I just want to make sure I get this right for you. What did you need there again? What was that thing again? And they understand I'm running around to 3 other matches. We talked an hour ago. I'm coming in now that we're about to go up and just double checking what you wanted to. You said there was a thing. Just remind me what that thing was. You'll love this one, Samee. I've been in the ring. The second person was getting introduced and I went to the first person in the corner and I said, just remind me, what's the finish again?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I've been out here a while.
Sick.
What was the finish for this one? And they tell me, and of course, or you said, what was the thing I'm supposed to get distracted on? And I just ask them. We're all friends. We're all putting on the same show together. So when I need to know that, you just do that over there.
I love that. You fell into being a referee. What's next for Ref Eddie? Is there another step you want to take, or are you waiting for something else to drop into your lap?
I still believe that I would make a great heel manager for the right wrestler. I would love to get to a place where I had the opportunity to try to make people dislike me and the wrestler I was representing. As much as I'd like to make them like me, I would like to make them hate us. I had pitched an idea for a one-off match that I still believe was a good idea. Jungle Girl at WOW was one of my best friends in the world, one of the greatest human beings ever, and she had to retire due to cancer. But she is still very healthy and working and great, but doesn't work in the ring anymore. She's one of our lead producers, and I pitched to her an idea we tried to get to happen where the whole storyline was she was going to do one more match, but I was like, hey, I'm a licensed California state referee. You will never get approved for this match. You can't have it. And the storyline was, don't tell me what I can and can't do, and would have ended with her retirement match where once you wrestle as a ref, you can't be a ref anymore. So it'd be my swan song where we would have a match, but it would just be her beating the shit out of me with a steel chair for 10 minutes and then pinning me. Do you know, like it was one of those kind of barn burner Western Texas wrestling style beatdowns. That was one of those two. And they would kind of, if I got beat up in a match, I would turn heel as a manager at some point. So somewhere I would love the opportunity to try managing a wrestler. I think that'd be an incredible opportunity.
You just get the call like, Paul Heyman's out sick. We need you.
Do you have a suit and a bow tie, Eddie?
Final question for you, Eddie. Wrestling Academy is a newer podcast. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to put Michael through a table. Do you have any pointers for us? As it stands, I think a spear is going to be how I put Michael through a table.
A spear? It's either that or a choke slam. Choke slams through a table are strong.
Oh, yeah.
I would say choke slam him like the dead man choke slam The Rock at WrestleMania 40.
And then roll underneath the ring and wait.
But you want some advice? Set the table on fire first.
Yeah.
They keep pushing for the flaming table. And I'm just like, for 1,000, that seems too small. Like I'm thinking bigger.
You'll get 5,000 more if you do it.
Okay. Well, then I'm in.
Excellent. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining us and being our first guest here at Wrestling Academy. Where can people find you on the internet?
Thank you guys so much for having me. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at I am Eddie Furth. On Instagram, follow at No Laughing Show. I do a show at the Hollywood Improv. The next one is July 5th. Friday, July 5th at 9:30 p.m. And No Laughing, we pull contestants from the audience. If you can last 3 one-minute rounds of comedy without laughing, you win cash and prizes. So follow at I am Eddie Furth and at No Laughing Show on Instagram and TikTok.
So that was our interview with referee Eddie Furth, our very first guest on the Wrestling Academy podcast.
Thank you, Eddie.
I've got the bug, Samee. I want more guests. I want them all.
I thought you were gonna be like, I want to be a ref.
I want to be. Yeah, that sounds cool too. But I mean, I think after hearing about what goes into being a referee, yeah, it sounds really cool. And I think I think the art of being a referee, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just really helped remind me that at the end of the day, wrestling is performance. And so there are so many different aspects into what makes a match cool or great or interesting. And so it was very fun to just get to dive in and learn more about somebody whose whole role is helping facilitate a match, and just the level of detail and specificity that goes into that, I thought was really, it was just really fascinating to learn more. And it was really cool. And it sounds like a ton of fun.
Yeah, I think one part that was super interesting and I didn't really think about was he just gets to be in the ring with the wrestlers, like right next to them. And it seems like he gets to be surprised at the same time that, the audience does, which I think is real sweet and nice. One question that I asked after we had stopped recording was, are we missing a lot as an audience, like as far as what's going on in the ring, like communication wise? And Eddie, hit us with an anecdote of one time the wrestlers were gently singing a song to each other, which wrestling is so fucking cute, Michael. Come on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Samee, if you could sweetly sing one song to your wrestling opponent, what would you sing?
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, the song that popped up right when you started asking me that question is "Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic." So I'm not.
That's better than mine, because the first one that popped up in my head was from Les Mis, where it's just "Master of the House, a keeper at the zoo." That would be the fucking stupidest thing to sing to my opponent while we're doing a death match. Who knows?
We are we're not going to be allowed to be inside a wrestling ring ever. We're too stupid.
Yeah, we're too dumb. We're too dumb for wrestling. That's what we learned today.
But who's not dumb is Eddie Furth. Big thanks to him once again. If you're in the Los Angeles area, and his show No Laughing is up at the Hollywood Improv July 5th 2024.
Yeah, so definitely get your tickets now. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah,
but we just
100.
want to thank you for listening to Wrestling Academy, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Michael Classic, and you, Samee Junio. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Wrestling Academy Pod. You can send us an email at wrestlingacademypod@gmail.com.
Follow, rate, and leave a positive review wherever you get your podcast. But check out Spotify, where we have Q&As or polls for every freaking episode. And please, if you have any information on Ween Kid, go to our website at wrestlingacademy.university to send in an anonymous tip, or call the Ween Kid tip line and leave us a voicemail at 708-669-4512. Class is dismissed.